Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Nordic Puukko style knife build series where I'm teaching you how to build a Nordic style knife. And in this episode, I'm going to build a Nordic style Puukko knife sheath, which is so cool. It's a wood scabbard that's got a leather cuff around the top that really holds that knife in securely. It can be dangled from either side of your belt. It can be shoved in a pocket. This is a really cool knife sheath, and you know me, I'm going to throw my own style in it too. So here we go, guys. It's time to build a knife sheath. Let me grab some material. What? Spalted maple? What do you have that out for? Well, since you ask, I'm going to build a wooden scabbard to hold my knife, and then with my wooden scabbard, I'm going to have a leather cuff that goes around the top of the scabbard and up the handle to securely hold the knife in the scabbard. So let's go ahead and take this. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to square it up. I'm going to cut it right down the center, and then we'll hollow out a section for the knife. We'll get it glued back together. We'll profile it. We'll shape it. We'll build a leather cuff. We'll build a retention system around that cuff. We'll build a belt hanger for the cuff, and we'll have an extraordinary knife sheath. Let's do it. This is some pigskin leather right here, and it's real soft and supple. I like to use this as liner material in some of my sheaths. I just thought maybe a soft liner inside of this wood would give the knife a little cozier home, you know, and we'll see. I don't know. I may or may not like it. I'm just going to kind of see how, I'm going to put it in there, and then I'll see how the knife, how it fits, and if I like the retention of this being in there. See how I did that template? That's a pretty easy way to do that. I may or may not like this. It's important that when you're doing a liner to make sure that you run the material out, because you're going to have to run the material over the top and glue it. Because if you run the liner to here, then as you're inserting the knife, you could stick the knife blade between the liner and the sheath and effectively ruin it. So you're going to want to run the liner up and over so that there's a nice opening for your knife. Alright, so I've got 2 openings like that. Boom, kaboom. And I'm just going to see. This is probably going to be extremely tight. I have decided I'm going to use the pigskin. Now I milled a pocket in here that is the same depth all the way around. My knife has a bevel on it, and I don't want the knife to kind of flop around in there, so I've cut a small piece of material that I'm going to put here on the cutting edge, and then I will glue this right over the top. and that'll take up a little bit of area right here on this cutting edge, so that when you insert the knife, it'll align the cutting edge right into the middle, and the knife will sit real nice and snug. And the other thing is this real nice, soft, subtle material will protect the finish of the knife also. So let's go ahead, we'll glue in these little pieces first, and then we'll glue in these pieces right here. Now there's two sides to this. There's a really soft side and then the tanned side. We're going to glue the tanned side down and put the soft side on the inside. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to use a contact cement, and I'm going to be fairly liberal with it. Alright, we're all tacked up and ready. So let's glue in our liners. So we put in a piece right there to take up for some of the room where the bevels are. Let's go ahead and just lay that right down in there. Oh yeah. That's awesome. Did not mean to stretch that. One thing I didn't want to do was bring this liner up and over anywhere in here, because I want this to glue together seamless across this, so when it's finished you won't see anything. It should be seamless, and I should be able to get the grain to line up, once we get that all lined up and glued, and clamped together tight. I think that's good. Just go through and just make sure that it's pushed in all the way through, and that you really get that glue bond to set. Perfect. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to flip this over, trace the knife shape on the outside of the sheath on both of these, just to be on the safe side, and then we'll go ahead and we'll glue it together. And what we'll do first is we'll clamp it and make sure that the knife fits in. Everything should be good to go. This should fit right in there perfect. Everything's good. Yeah, excellent. So we'll go ahead and trace the knife on the outside. Go from there. So now we've got two halves, and you can see the knife outline on both sides. It's really hard to see on this material because it's like, camouflage. But yeah, works pretty good. Okay guys, now I know I said that I was ready to glue this together, but you guys know me. In my pursuit of perfection, I've decided to go ahead and take these two halves and just real easily run them on the surface plate with some sandpaper to smooth out both sides I really want to get the most seamless glue up that I can between the two sides. So I'm just going to real lightly go over these. That's good. Okay, so we're sanded up. Golfer's clap. I'll go ahead and clean these off with acetone. We will use a 2-part epoxy with a little bit of the sanding dust embedded in it, and then that way if there are any super tiny cracks, instead of there being a void, it'll be colored, and that's what we're looking for. I won't need this much epoxy, but I just like to mix a nice good amount. I'm going to go ahead and mix our dust in now. We're going to want to go really thin on this coat because we don't want a lot of squeeze out going to the inside where the knife is, because we can't clean that out in there. So ultimately a thin coat. Since we are going to shave off most of the outside, the most important part to get glued up correctly is right next to the knife. I will say that, because the rest of it's going to get cut off. Well, what became very evident through this process is that my table saw was not cutting squarely. This side is thinner than this side, which is not a big deal at all. We're going to true that up here in a second. So basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give myself the dimensions for the outside of the sheath, and we're going to get this thing cut out. We're going to cut out the profile first, and then we'll give it some shape and go from there. Just like on my handles, I've decided to go with a certain distance to my grind lines here, because I like everything to be symmetrical. So I mark it out. Now I did make sure that when I cut these right here, that I'm not going to get into the area where the knife is going to sit. So just give myself some grind two lines here, then we'll walk up to the grinder, we'll knock these edges off, and then we can hand shape everything else. So this is going to get hand sanded from here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we get everything nice and sandy. I'm just making sure I get this flat sanded perfectly. Once I get it sanded, I don't see any scratch marks at all, then I'll go ahead and move on to shaping these. This is a calf hide, and I'm going to use this to line my cuff with. So I'm charting unknown territories here. Never used this like this before, so actually let's do This is my edge beveler jig. I'm just beveling all my edges. Alright, so this is going to be the cuff that wraps around the sheath, and it'll get tied right up the front like that. And then this is going to be on the inside, wrapped around the outside like this, and it'll be pinned, so it's got a nice cuff for the knife to go in there. Kind of stoked about this. I think it's going to work out really well. 2.5 inches on a belt loop. Trim the corners. Be enough. Yeah. Put it right there. Okay, so I've got a couple things that I need to do here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch some holes through this, get it glued up, and whoopsie, missed my mark there. We're going to glue this right in the middle, right there, and then we're going to drill that and stitch it up. Number one, get ready to rock. All right. Go punch some holes, and then I'll sew that together. Are you ready for this? Alright, here we go. What I am doing now is probably the most exciting part of this build. I am going to apply the tongue oil, the first coat, which is the most explosive coat. We're going to do the first coat of tongue oil right here, right now. Oh yeah. Boy, that wood just soaks it up. Wow, look at that. So cool. One of the reasons I chose to use this spalted maple for this project rather than using it on a knife handle was because I didn't think the block was stabilized very well. I bought this block from an unknown source. And when I got it, I immediately could tell that there were some voids in it. You could see it was stabilized, but it might have been somebody's first try at it, or maybe they just had some old cactus juice or something like that, but it wasn't stabilized perfect. And, when I put all that time into a knife, the last thing I'm going to do is put a material on the handle that might, might not hold up in the long run. I think it'll be absolutely perfectly fine for a sheath, but maybe not a knife handle. So there we go. Man, that's beautiful. Just love the way that came out. It's got some really cool rings of the tree that go this way, and the spalting is just fantastic. Got the figure that goes right through from one side to the other, which is exactly what we wanted. Book matched pieces. I'm gonna have to do build-up coats on this to really get the finish the way that I want it. If you could see, all these little pores. I'm gonna continue to tongue oil this and put coats on it and let the tongue oil build up, and then I'll sand it with the backer so that all that's left is the tongue oil and the pores, and then I'll do, those will be my build-up coats, and then I'll go back and put another top coat of tongue oil on, a couple top coats actually, to really just make it beautiful and stand tall and get that glass-like finish on this. Okay, let's just set this off to the side to dry. So here's our cuff that we're building. We've got this cool kind of distressed look to it, which is exactly what I was going for. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this right onto the inside. Now this is the top of our belt loop. We're going to go right in here, and we're going to think about how this is going to lay over. So we don't want it to cover too much of the belt loop, but it can cover just a little bit of it. That's actually pretty good right there. So let's go ahead and draw a line right there. That's going to be our glue line. And ultimately, I'm going to draw a glue line right there. So now we need to spread glue on both of those. We're going to let that tack up and then stick it together. Alright, we're ready for glue up. Now, I've got some holes drilled here on both sides, and I don't want to overlap that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to lay this right in the middle. There we go, just like that. Now, the reason that I brought it up to here is because this is the part that's going to wrap around the wooden sheath. And I didn't want this to wrap around the sheath too. I wanted to keep this as slim as possible, and since this is wrapped around the sheath, there's a little extra area on the inside, and this will take up that extra area and kind of hug the knife. Alright, so we've got it glued in here, and then basically it's going to fold over and then wrap around like this. Now, I wanted to hold this down. I thought about putting studs through here, but that would put a piece of metal on the inside. So what I ended up doing is I went ahead and put some holes here, and now I'm just going to go ahead and stitch the two together just to hold the flap down is really what I'm after. So I'm just going to pull this through like so. Pretty simple, huh? Then something like this will hold nice and tight. And I think it looks cool. You know, since we're going for that kind of caveman look or Viking look, I think that's perfect. All right. Now, I would normally burn these, but if I burn these, I'm going to burn the hair. So I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to tie these. Right, now I need to do the same thing on this side. See how the flap hangs out? So basically I'll just push it down like that. I'll drill 2 holes and 2 holes, and then I'll tie them together. And we are ready for the assembly. Okay, so the sheath's going to go like this, and I'm going to set it up initially for a right-handed carry, so it would be like that. Let's one thing I want to point out. Let's see if you can see this. I left these slight spurs here and here so that when I sew this cuff on, this can't pull through. It won't pull through because this is slightly larger at the top. So as long as I get this nice and tight, this should stay fairly tight inside of this. Let's get this. Kind of a tedious process here. Now I want to make sure I do the exact same thing every single time so that my stitches are identical. I'm trying not to gouge my wood here.